the EPA in their own report said that Tyson, one one Tyson location out of Dakota City releases as much as 3,084 pounds of nitrogen per day into the Missouri River. They said this is approximately equal to the waste load of 132,000 people. Okay, this was the EPA themselves that cited this. So over 3,000 pounds of nitrogen dumped into the Missouri River, equivalent to waste from 132,000 people. This to me was also alarming because, Joel, my family used to live in Florida for 3 years because that's where my husband got a job. And we had to leave Florida because of the health issues I was suffering from the red tide, which, we lived in Southwest Florida, and this dumping of the nitrogen, we now know, fuels the red tide. It's like what you said, the ecology cannot handle it, can't handle the load that we're giving to the environment. And the algae and stuff respond by releasing this toxic compound. And so I was suffering multiple miscarriages because of the red tide. So this ties directly into that. And we know that that's actually a neurotoxin. It causes all these fish to wash up dead on the shores. Now seemingly every year, it's toxic to the animals. So anyhow, this is a big problem. So I was talking about this with Donnie yesterday, because I was like, I need to talk through this. Like, where do I fall on this? Because like you, I am a small government, limited government, libertarian. In something like this, I'm wondering, well, what's the solution, right? You have these companies that overrun the ecology, so they can't use the solution that you're using, which is, like you so eloquently described, of having the ecology kind of break it down and actually utilize what's coming off of your chicken processing. They can't do that. It overruns it. And yet they're allowed to take this wastewater and put it in water, whether it's, they dump it into a stream and that stream flows into a larger body of water, like a lake. And then that lake is used for not only recreation, but also for drinking water in many instances. So we have that situation here where we live. We're one of the chicken CAFO factories of the world here. And so we specifically only will live on one side of the freeway because the other side has all these CAFOs there, and you can smell it. It's nauseating. I know people who have had to move because the smell of the CAFOs makes them so sick because of all the chemicals that they're using and the stench of the feces and whatever other pathogens are in there. So I spoke with a local farmer here who, by the way, is a huge fan of yours, and he tries to farm like you. And there's a CAFO just down the street from him that he said it's disgusting. They take the wastewater, they literally just dump it right there in the creek, and it goes right into the big body of the big lake that literally is the water that's pumped through the local water treatment plant. And then that's sent to the homes and people drink it, right? That's through our county. That's the county water. These CAFOs can dump right into waterways that go into that lake. And he said that they will routinely test the water. And he said that there's even been positive tests for flesh-eating bacteria in the water. And his assumption is it's coming from these CAFOs. So I have a couple. So my question for you is, in terms of us who are these limited government, people, what actually is the solution? Because I described that. And so this isn't just on paper for me. Like when I'm reading these EPA rules, this is in my backyard. You can drive around this area, you can smell these CAFOs. In our homeschool group, we go to watering holes every week during the summer, and there's specific watering holes we do not allow our children to go into because you can smell and see the pollution, right? So this is a real thing in our lives. And here's the other part of it. So I didn't think about this until there was a public comment period for this EPA proposed rule. And there was opponents of it said this, that if the EPA is allowed to do this, there's 78% of the dischargers that are still going to continue to pollute the waterways. So it's missing, in their opinion, 78% of the people who are polluting the waterways. When they do that, it threatens our downstream drinking water supply. And here's the thing, it passes the cost onto the taxpayers that fund our wastewater treatment plants. So I was like, wait a minute, this is true. So our local tax dollars go to these wastewater treatment plants. And so we're paying more in taxes actually to treat that water, right? The company has passed the cost onto the water treatment plant, who then passes it on to us, the local taxpayers. So in essence, I am subsidizing those processing plants for processing meat and poultry that I think is junk, right? That we shouldn't be subsidizing. But I am subsidizing that with my tax dollars instead of that company being responsible for taking care of their own waste. Yeah. So you know what I'm saying? So this is quite the dilemma.
So it is a philosophical conundrum. But let me go back. I'm going to go back. I'm old enough to remember when the EPA was started by President Nixon, and at that time there was just a TV ad. I mean, that's all we had in those days. TV, didn't have social media, didn't have internet, but there were massive advertising campaigns by environmental groups. Maybe some of our listeners are old enough to remember seeing the Native Americans standing on the shores of the Cuyahoga River as it burned. It actually had enough stuff on it that it actually caught fire and burned. And somebody comes along with a car and throws trash out on the side of the road, and this big tear comes down the cheek of it's American icon. I mean, it was iconic American, and what that did, that awakened it. What it did, it moved the culture to not only an awareness, but a fighting awareness of the pollution problem. I mean, fish couldn't live in rivers anymore. I mean, we were in bad shape in the late 60s and early 70s. And that cultural awareness eventuated in the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency. And what I would say is that the societal pendulum swings side to side. It doesn't sit in the middle usually. It swings side to side, and it has to swing far enough on a side, to one direction before there's corrective action. It has to get to people, enough. Well, at that point, culture, all of us, we come to this tipping point of, okay, I'm saying enough. What's the solution? And the temptation is to gravitate toward, well, let's let the government solve this. Let's create an agency and get the government to solve this. It's a longer slog, and I'll admit it. I don't have a quick solution here. It's a longer slog to say, okay, now people are awake, they're aware, and they will begin voting with their dollars. There will just these environmental groups will morph into marketplace. I mean, look what's happened with DEI in modern times. Diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, and environmental social governance (ESG) in these big companies, BlackRock, and I'm not sitting here defending any of that. Okay, all I'm suggesting is, just when Walt Disney came out woke, suddenly their attendance dropped 30% as conservatives quit going to Disney. Okay, that's marketplace speak, if you will. That's market speak, and the thing is, when we as a culture, we demanded a government solution to this, and we're not content to let individual choice and market reaction respond to the dirty companies. We then traded a grassroots personal response, you know, defund the bad company kind of thing. And we simply conveniently laid it over to a government agency, which vacillates seemingly between incompetence or negligence, which RFK Jr. has sued the government, whatever, 180 times for not doing their job, okay, or not fulfilling their mandate. That's one, or the corporate fraternity, collusion. But then the other end of that is where a farmer has a mud puddle, and now his farm's determined a wetland, and he can't do any farming because he's got a mud puddle. And so you have that. So you have this whipsawing back and forth of people dealing with the technocracy, rather than the actual, issue of the day, which is discharge into the creeks. Anyone, and I know this is going to rub some people the wrong way, but let me tell you something. The most disempowering, and you just chime in there anytime, but the most disempowering thing you can tell, you can assume as an American citizen, the most disempowering thing you can assume is that the only solution is a governmental solution. That's the most disempowering thing, or whatever paradigm, philosophy that you can have. No, a government solution should be the last resort. There are tons of things that can be done privately by private organizations, NGOs, private sleuthing groups, journalists, the media, if it were actually functional. There are lots of things that can be done to create this awareness. My point is that once the culture awakens to a problem, the solution is not necessarily required of the government. I mean, it's like when people awakened to the problems of the public schools that started the homeschool movement. All right. And again, I'm not trying to be partisan. I'm not trying to be anti anything. I'm just saying that personal option to opt out, to go rogue, if you will, to say, okay, I'm not going to participate in this system. That is a powerful thing. And when that's added by this person, and it's added up across the awareness marketplace with individual responsibility stepping up to the plate, we can change things pretty dramatically. And if the here's what I would say: if the environmental groups would take all of the effort they're expending suing the EPA for not doing its job, if they would turn all that into their constituency and say, don't go to Happy Meals, don't go to Burger King, and don't buy Tyson, because here are the pictures, here's what they're doing. If they would turn that campaign into an individualistic marketplace campaign, I'm suggesting we would be way farther down the road to solving the solution than by simply demanding a solution, a governmental solution that vacillates between incompetency, collusion, and overreach. Friends, want to dive deeper into our thought-provoking conversations? Become part of the Beyond Labels family today by joining below. For any gift amount, you'll get access to the full, uncut episodes.
Every contribution, whether big or small, keeps this podcast going.
So join us and expand your Beyond Labels experience. Thank you.